The following is an exclusive live broadcast from Catholic 540 AM, Divine Mercy Radio, and the Divine Mercy Radio app.
Live on Catholic 540 AM and the Divine Mercy Radio app, Catholic 540 AM Divine Mercy Radio presents a special live broadcast from the campus of St. Michael the Archangel Catholic Church. An evening with Father Robert Spitzer, S.J. Now, live from Cary, North Carolina.
I wanted to thank Father Burbick for inviting us here and for helping us set this up, and for all the individuals that put this event together tonight. It's a lot of work, but they've done a really super job, and the food was very good. We're also thankful to Divine Mercy Radio for being here tonight. They're going to be broadcasting this live. So a couple of, before I introduce Father, a couple of quick anecdotes. Last week, Father was at the Broadmoor Hotel in Colorado Springs, for anybody who knows that area. It's a very beautiful hotel. And a young lady came up to Father and said, "You're Father Spitzer, aren't you?" And he said, "Yes, I am Father Spitzer." And she said, "Well, you gave a talk at St. Thomas More some years ago about the 4 levels of happiness, and it changed my entire life. And I wanted to thank you." And she's now maybe a second or third year college student at Franciscan. It's a very beautiful story, and it's indicative of the impact that Father Spitzer has on people. For those of you who don't know much about him, he was born in Hawaii. Why he decided to leave Hawaii? Well, he wanted to be a priest more than he wanted to have fun, so we thank him for that. When he finally decided to be a priest, he was a little bit impulsive, but he had been thinking about it for a period of time, so he went to the Jesuit priest and said, "I want to be a priest." And the Jesuit priest was like, "Well, what do you know about this? I mean, how do you know you want to be a priest?" So the priest told him, "I'm going to give you 5 books, and when you read those books and you want to discuss them, you come back." So within 2 weeks, who reads 5 books in 2 weeks that are complicated? Only Father Spitzer. So within a couple of weeks, Father Spitzer had read the books. He went back and discussed them with the Jesuit priest, and the rest of the story is history. So it's an amazing story. He may shed some more details on that, but you've got the basics. He was a former president of Gonzaga University. Many of you think that Gonzaga is just a basketball team, but it's actually a university. He's got a weekly show on EWTN, Father Spitzer's Universe, where he provides a tremendous amount of good wisdom to us. He's a book writer, and he has a new book coming out soon. He's the founder of the Magus Institute. He's doing some amazing work. He's a prolific writer and speaker. And it's our pleasure to introduce Father Spitzer. It's a delight to have you tonight. I think you'll find that the 4 levels of happiness, I know it changed my life and the way I think about things. And one of the things I like most about Father Spitzer, he provides absolute clarity. And one thing that we don't have in this world today is clarity almost on anything. Truth, clarity, God's way, and we're just delighted to have him.
It really is an honor to be with all of you, and thank you for coming out on a perfectly good Friday night to find out about the most important term, as Aristotle would have described it, that anybody can ever learn about, to learn about it in its full context. Somebody asked me today during the radio interviews and press interviews, they asked, "Well, why did you write this book? Why have you come up with this talk in this particular time? And I'm just going to give a summary of that just to start off with, and then you'll see the need in just a moment. Number one, I noticed that our young people are experiencing, this is before COVID, a 56% increase in suicides over 12 years. That's 1.5 times increase in 12 years. That's enormous. And then on top of it, a 63% increase in depression and anxiety over the same period, same young people, a 23% increase in homicides, and on top of that, we can expect that 30% of our young people will have some kind of major psychiatric disorder before they are 30. That's a bad track record. I think we can generalize from that and say there are a lot of people in our culture who are unhappy. But that's not the end of the story. Of course, that's the bad news. The good news is that secular studies have also been done by the American Psychiatric Association that show that people who are religiously affiliated, when compared with non-religiously affiliated people, have a much higher rate of happiness. But let's reverse it. Those who are non-religiously affiliated have significantly higher rates of depression, anxiety, antisocial aggressivity, impulsivity, substance abuse, familial tensions, suicidal ideation, and suicides. Religion is not just good for your salvation. Religion is really good for your sanity. Religion is really good for your emotional health. Because Augustine described it correctly when he was speaking to God at the beginning of the Confessions and said, "For thou hast made us for thyself, and our hearts are restless, unhappy, until they rest in thee." So that would be the objective tonight, is to talk about that and to talk about one other thing that's going on as well. So notice that religion has declined among younger people. And in fact, we know that about 42% of our young people will lose their faith before they are 25 years old. And notice how that's correlating with the increase in suicides, depression, and anxiety, just as the American Psychiatric Association studies would have indicated. Notice also one other trend that's going on with young people. What we're going to call level 2 happiness, ego-comparative happiness, is actually gone skyrocketing up. Yes, thanks to Instagram, thanks to Facebook, thanks to even the whole ambiance of the school system. Not, of course, St. Thomas More Academy and the Thales Academies, but definitely you can see in the aura of most of the school system, the public school system, you can see ego-comparative identity is flying right off the charts. And what is ego-comparative identity in brief? Who's achieving more? Who's achieving less? Who's got more power, less power, more popularity, less popularity, more intelligence, less intelligence, more athleticism, less athleticism, more beauty, less beauty. Who's a winner and who's a proverbial loser? Now, if that is what you're gauging your happiness on, if that's where you think that self-worth is if that's where you think that a meaningful life is going to happen to you, get ready. You should see, as we'll show in a moment, net increases in depression, anxiety, the same symptoms we see with our younger people. In other words, what's going on today in our culture is a rapid increase in level 2 happiness, a rapid decrease in level 4 or religious or God, faith-based happiness. And with these two things in mind, you can just see that young people are literally going crazy. They are literally having real problems with depression and anxiety. Then all you have to do is add a sprinkling of COVID to it, and you can redouble all those terrible effects. We need religion more than ever. We need to push down ego-comparative identity and happiness more than ever. If we can do this, we'll do the biggest favor for our young people. But not just our young people. We'll do the biggest favor for our middle-aged people and the biggest favor to our elderly people. And the best part about it is you don't have to go in there with all guns blazing. This message can be given to a huge swath of the general public. And I've done this talk, by the way, at all kinds of big corporations, to government agencies, to a variety of other contexts, but above all to schools. But I tell you, the message is accepted on the broadest possible basis. So let's get to the point. Why this term, happiness? I mean, how can that be such a powerful term, such a powerful topic? Well, here's what Aristotle had to say 2,400 years ago at the beginning of his classic work, the Nicomachean Ethics. Happiness is the one thing you can choose for itself. Everything else, absolutely everything else, is chosen for the sake of happiness. That one little term will determine who we want as our friends, what principles, what ethics, what values we're going to have in our life, who we're going to marry, what kinds of jobs we'll pursue, what is beneath us and what is to be aspired by us. This term alone, this one little term, controls everything of value in our lives. If our young people misdefine it, it will have truly traumatic effects for many years to come. On the other hand, if they define it correctly, if they move to the truest notions of happiness and don't put their lives at risk with the false notions of happiness, it'll be the best present you could ever give to them for a lifetime. And they'll turn right around and they'll be such positive influences in society themselves. And in addition to that, they will lead many people to God and the church. All we've got to do is start in the right place. Because when they come up and they say, I don't feel so happy, I feel unhappy, there's something wrong in my life, I feel depressed, seize the day. Seize upon the opportunity. This is the point at which we can really provide not only the guidance of psychologists. There are many of psychologists here, from Kohlberg and to Newman, to Maslow's need hierarchy, etc. There are many philosophers involved. Yes, the Catholic ones like St. Augustine and St. Thomas Aquinas, but also the Christian existentialists, Soren Kierkegaard, Karl Jaspers, and Gabriel Marcel, and of course a variety of other secular philosophers as well. So we've got this huge wealth here, which is not only Catholic wealth, surely it is Catholic wealth, but it is also the wealth of the classics. It is the wealth of psychology, contemporary psychology, the wealth of contemporary anthropology, the wealth even of theology and theologians. It really is at the center of our lives. That's why happiness. This is the opportunity. Kids are going to come and say, I'm having problems. Here's where to start. Here's how to lead them to the Lord. And here's how to get them out of ego-comparative trouble. So let's go through it for just a second here, and I'm just going to try and give a quick précis of what these are. You can see the little descriptions there with the diagrams. Happiness level 1, very briefly, I'm just going to call it happiness. It comes from essential pleasure and from material possessions. So it's something coming from the outside. And what is coming from the outside is supposedly going to make us happy. So I get into my Mercedes 500 E-Class with leather upholstery, and I feel the German engineering going around the corners, and I say to myself, I am truly happy. And indeed, I am on a certain basic level 1. I get a wonderful piece, prime rib there with the salmon. Was that salmon with the wonderful sauce this evening? And of course, as he's wolfing it down, he says to himself, I'm happy. And indeed I am. On a certain basic level, let's call it just level 1. Level 2 is more complicated, but I already described it for you. And so very briefly, I'll just give you the sense of it. It's ego-comparative happiness. And where it comes from is that we have self-consciousness. We're not only aware that there's a podium or a lectern here, we're aware of being aware of the lectern, so we can come back on ourselves in a reflexive act and grasp that, aware of the lectern, but I'm also aware of my awareness of the lectern. And by the way, I can do a triple. I can be aware of being aware of myself. I could actually come back and get myself getting myself. Now, that is a remarkable thing. But the moment you can do that, you get your own inner world. You get your own privacy. And the moment you get your own inner universe, your own inner world, your own privacy, you know what happens? You start dividing the world into the out there and the in here. And unfortunately, the primary instinct of all of us is to emphasize the in here. That's what really counts. I'm going to shift the locus of control to me because I like it and it makes me happy. So, of course, I begin to think of things because in order for me to shift the locus of control to myself, I'm going to have some comparative advantage. So I think to myself, who's achieving more and who's achieving less? Who's more intelligent and less intelligent? I would like to think I am, because it would make me happy in a certain comparative level 2 sense. You come up to me and you say, Spitzer, you are a great chess player and you have achieved much. And I say, please keep talking about that subject. It is making me happy. Okay, pretty clearly, we love the acknowledgement of it. We love the popularity. We love the status, of course. But it's when we turn, as we'll see, when we turn this into an end in itself, it becomes really problematic. And according to our estimates, 72% of our kids are making level 2 their dominant view of happiness. In other words, my definition of self-worth, my definition of success, my definition of quality of life, my definition of identity, my definition of purpose in life, my definition of happiness is to be smarter than you, more athletic than you, that'll never happen in a million years, more talented than you, more popular than you, more status than you. I turn it into an end in itself. Now, we'll describe the problems with that in a moment, but just keep that statistic in mind. 72% are going to do this. Let's go to level 3 really quickly. That's contributive happiness. Whereas level 2 uses self-consciousness to shift the locus of control to me. I want to be comparatively better than you. That would make me happy. Level 3 is precisely the opposite. Because we have 2 other powers in us. One is called empathy, and another is called conscience. And because of empathy and conscience, we not only want to shift the locus of control to ourselves, we want to actually make a positive difference to somebody or something beyond ourselves. We really want to make a positive difference to the world beyond ourselves. We would like to know by the end of our lives, we don't want to get to 80 years old and go, what was the difference between the value of my life and that of a rock? And have to say that the rock did more for humanity than I did. I was pretty much a leech, but I was really talented. I mean, I was smarter than everybody, but I just didn't do anything with it. I really was better looking than everybody, not me, but I didn't do anything with it. I was really talented, but I didn't do anything with it. I was really popular and had a whole lot of status, but I led a whole lot of people astray and into the kingdom of darkness and hell. I really was smarter. I really was far better and talented than anybody. But level 3 says just the opposite. I don't want to be that way. I don't want to have my life judged accordingly. So what level 3 says is, I want to make an optimal positive difference to my family and to my friends. An optimal positive difference to my community, to my church, to the kingdom of God. I want to make an optimal positive difference to my organization that I work for, or to the institutions that I believe in, and those who hold my values and principles. I want to forward that for the good of culture, for the good of society. I want to make an optimal positive difference in every sphere I touch. That's the only way I can have a really optimal and good life. That's the only way I can make a difference that'll have a perduring quality. I don't care who's smarter than me. just as long as I'm using my intelligence to make as much positive difference as I can before I depart this world. I really don't care who's got more status than me, just as long as I use the status I have to make an optimal positive difference to my family, to my friends, to my culture, to the church, to the kingdom of God, to the society if I'm so lucky to do so, to organizations I represent, and to those who hold my values, in institutions that represent my principles. As long as I can use it for that, then great. I've leveraged it to the max. That'll be a great quality of life. I just don't want to get to the end of life and go, the Rock did more than me, even though I was the brightest. Then, what could be better than level 3 happiness? Level 3 happiness, as we shall see, alone is not the only thing that human beings want. Human beings, as Plato discovered 2,400 years ago, human beings are ultimatizers. And not only are we ultimatizers, but God has come into our lives and given us an institution. This is not Plato here. This is the Christian legacy after Plato. But God has come into our lives and given us an invitation to be in communion with Him. And boy, as we shall see those statistics from the American Psychiatric Association, if we really desire communion with God and we maintain that, we maintain it by going to church. We maintain it in the Eucharist. We maintain it in our prayer. We maintain it in our moral lives. And we try to even better ourselves in our moral lives to really be in communion with the Lord. The happiness level goes up. Man, the saints that have always lived in my communities, in the Jesuit community, and we've had many of them, you'd always see them. They'd come down the hall, and the joy, the light was just coming out of their eyes. One day, actually, when Father Linda Kugel comes down the hallway, and he's saying, "You're so beautiful." I said, "I take it that's addressed to God." And it was. But in any case, the point I'm trying to get to is that, yeah, you can tell. They're happy people. They're joyful people. Oh, can they have crosses? Oh, immense crosses. But they're still joyful. There's still a peace. There's still an equanimity. There's still a sanguine dimension to their nature, even amidst sometimes the hard-boiled crosses that we can give, even the torments that Jesus experienced, even in Psalm 22, which he recounts at the end, which starts with, my God, why have you forsaken me?" It is ending, even in his torture and torment, with, "I trust you, Lord." And he goes on to say that I have done this as a sacrifice for the redemption of all, for those who have gone down into the domain of Sheol, for those who are going who will live in the future and will never see these days, but they'll be in the future. For all those, too, who are not just of the elect people, the Jewish people, but also of the Gentile people. I'm doing this for, and of course, what does he exclaim in the middle of the psalm? Let your hearts be merry, happy. Why? Because life can be this worthwhile, even in the midst of torment and suffering. We can have so much value. We can bring so much to the world and to culture that it literally brings a joy and a peace and an equanimity in the trust of God, who is not just leading us to salvation, but leading many, many others to salvation through our efforts and crosses. And that's, of course, happiness. That's a different kind of happiness. Plato, as I said, discovered it long ago. He said, oh yeah, we're ultimatizers. We don't want just some truth. We want perfect truth. We want the complete set of correct answers to the complete set of questions. And that was before we were jaded. I've always talked about my little nieces. They were always so great, and I'd come over to the house and they call me Uncle Big Words. And of course they would say, Uncle Big Words, we have 6 questions. So of course they'd ask me a question and go, oh, that's because of this. Well, why is that? Well, that's because of this. Why is that? And finally you have to go time out because you're in the deepest modes of quantum physics. They're going to keep asking again relentlessly, because they really want to know the complete set of correct answers to the complete set of questions. And what's remarkable is they know when they haven't achieved it yet. And they ask a subsequent question. Oh, that's in all of us, you little ultimatizers, you. And by the way, we don't just want some love. We want perfect love. That's why we're always dissatisfied. You know, I taught a lot of college students. These college students, they go, oh, I'm too realistic for that. I don't want perfect love. And you go, oh, yeah? Well, did you ever have a girlfriend? And she suddenly became somewhat finite. You know, she'd get tired. And then you discovered that not only that, she'd sometimes have imperfect responses to you. And sometimes you discover, well, not only that, but I mean, she can't be really perfect happiness for me. She can't be perfect relationship. She can't be perfect meaning in life. She can't be perfect responsiveness. She can't be perfect security. And you just said, I give up. This imperfect being. She's not the one. And then you break up with her. And the kids will always go, yeah, I've done that. And you go, well, what were you looking for? Perfect love? Yeah, in all the wrong places. You were trying to make this poor girl conform to nothing less than God, to the unconditional love of God. And she just couldn't live up to it. By the way, girls can do the same thing to men, to boys too. Just telling you. The point is, of course we're looking for perfect love. But we're looking in the wrong place to a finite creature to give us infinite, unrestricted, perfect love. And not only that, we want perfect good. Have you ever seen a child of 13 years old, or maybe even younger, 10, 11, and their parents make a mistake? The parents were somewhat unfair. And just, the child knows this was unfair. It's not fair. And notice how the child says it. With his lower lip extended. That's not fair. And the entire world is coming to conclusion right there on the spot. And of course, all the world's caving in. He's disappointed. He's frustrated because he expected perfect fairness and justice in this world. And lo and behold, it did not come. Nothing but imperfect justice. My dad came into my room once when I was about 12 years old, and he said, you know, the world's not perfectly fair. And my response was, it should be. But he said, no, it shouldn't be, because we're not perfect enough to make it so. And that was a good lesson for me. But the point is, we're looking for it. We want ultimacy. We want perfect truth, love, goodness, beauty, and home. And God is the only one, and can be the only one, that can give us perfect truth, love, goodness, beauty, and home. Because there can be one and only one perfect truth, love, goodness, beauty, and being. And why is that? You can find that out in my book, New Proofs for the Existence of God. And just go to chapter 7, where I show the proof for why you can only have one and only one perfect being, perfect truth, perfect love, perfect goodness, and perfect beauty. Now, presenting from that for a moment, that's God. And that's why St. Augustine says, because of this nature of ours that can only be satisfied by God, because of this invitation that we have been given since we were kids, that rivets us, that fascinates us with God, is because God is present within us, that every human being is so fascinated with God until the beginning. You have to drill God out of people. You literally do. If you want to turn a kid into an atheist, really got to indoctrinate him big time. Because naturally, it follows that religion is fascinating. It's not just fascinating because it's mysterious. It's fascinating because it's commensurate with something deeply in us, this invitation in us that is coming as almost, this big, huge creative mystery is sitting there in us, inviting us to himself and calling us deeper into himself, and we know it. And of course, if we separate ourselves from that, the very thing that makes us whole, which can fulfill us, the very thing alone which can bring us to completion in ourselves, lest we are completely self-alienated. It's the only, I shouldn't say thing, the only being, the only person, the only consciousness, the only intellect that can possibly do that is the perfect truth, love, goodness, beauty, and being of God himself, who is the perfect love that has been present to us since the day of our conception. That's why St. Augustine said, for thou hast made us for thyself. And our hearts are restless, unhappy, until they rest in thee. And the statistics of the American Psychiatric Association prove this conclusively. Those who separate themselves from God, increase depression, anxiety, suicide, suicidal ideation, impulsivity, antisocial aggressivity, substance abuse, and familial tensions. That's what'll happen if you separate yourself from the one who created you from the beginning, the one without whom you can never be fulfilled, the one without whom you are significantly incomplete, the one without whom you can have no peace but sheer restlessness. Well, that's the fourth level of happiness. Having said all of that, let's go back now to our culture. We do have a problem. I've already described what it is, but it's called the comparison game, and I just want to go through it sort of officially with you. What happens in our culture is people, because of our, we have wealth out there, but because we are progressively rejecting religion and elevating ego-comparative advantage to a level unprecedented, even by the Roman Empire in the history of humankind, because we're doing this, what's winding up happening is our kids, 72% of our kids think that what really makes life worth living is having ego-comparative advantage and more stuff than every other kid. What our kids think is that having ego-comparative advantage not only makes life worthwhile and happy, but they're wrong. But they think that. They not only think that ego-comparative advantage is going to make them have more worth in themselves and more value in themselves. Can you imagine that they would believe that they had more value because they had more ego-comparative advantage, that they belonged to the Mensa Society or something, or they got the athletic trophy, that they would have more value than a Mother Teresa or someone, a Pope John Paul II who expended everything he had in his being to make a difference in the world? You don't have to get to famous people. Just the unheralded little saints that are out there who spend themselves in every imaginable way to make a difference to their family, their friends. They're the positive influence that kept so many people above board when they were having trouble. The positive little influences that tried to make a contribution with the skills they had, not only to make the world a better place, but to introduce God and the kingdom of heaven to everybody they knew. I mean, these are the little guys. Of course their life is intrinsically valuable and extrinsically valuable beyond anything that wealth could adorn us with, beyond anything that ego-comparative advantage, unused in the desire to make a positive difference in the world, could possibly do for us. Intelligence, without using the intelligence for the benefit of God and the benefit of humankind, what's it worth? It's worth so little. Sic transit gloria mundi. It is a fading, a passing glory, the things of this world. And it is. What lasts forever is the love that has been given, the faith that has been shared, that has built the kingdom of God and helped the world to be a better place to live. That is what happens when we have all this wealth and all this opportunity. We tend to elevate it to the highest possible levels. What's happening with 72% of our kids is then when they say the real thing that in life that, right, they short circuit level, they don't even get to level 3 or level 4. I mean, it's a short circuit. They stay at level 1 and level 2, and they're literally mesmerized by it. Mesmerized by Harvard. Mesmerized by the sports program. And mesmerized by the car that will do the trick, that will really make life worth living, which it never does. Because, of course, I'm on a treadmill the minute I do that. I got to get to higher levels of opportunity. More on that in a moment. So now, we've got a short-circuit society. And we are placing an enormous amount of our efforts into getting this extra ego-comparative advantage. What can we expect our kids to do? They will then split the world into 3 parts. Let's call them the winners, the losers, and the guys in the middle. Those who are doing better, those who are doing worse, and those who are really struggling to do better, even though they're right on the borderline and could get kicked down the chute. Now, let's take a look at what the kids feel. Let's suppose they perceive of themselves, whether true or not, could be true, might not be true. But as long as they perceive themselves as losers, what can we expect to happen? Number one, we can expect them to have severe inferiority, a severe sense of being judged, a severe problem with self-pity that's kind of leaning toward desperation, even despair. And sometimes, I don't have to say, but suicides can emerge from that. Also, we can expect them to have a significant sense of jealousy and anger. So if they don't focus inward, which produces the depression, if they focus outwards, right, which produces anger at the person who has the thing, envy to the person who has the thing, what's the difference between jealousy and envy? Well, jealousy just wants what you have. Envy hates you for having it. We got a lot of envy out there, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a lot of envy where not only do people hate other people for having something they don't have, they actually desire harm for those people out of that hatred. And that's happening just because we have a difficulty with ego comparative advantage and find ourselves or perceive ourselves being the losers. Also, we can expect ourselves too, when we're in this state, is to almost have a pathological fear. In other words, I got a fear of just relating to the world. What am I going to do? I can't succeed. What am I going to do? Going forward into the future, et cetera, et cetera. This is a miserable state of being. No wonder the suicide rates go up. No wonder the depression and anxiety rates are going up. Now, double and triple the compounding effects of the Instagram, Facebook, social media. Just keep compounding it. I need go no further. You can see why our kids' suicide rates, etc., are going through the ceiling. Number two, you got the opposite. You got the possibility that you are the winner. And, of course, if what really matters is being top of the game, recognized for it, being the great hero, being the winner, being the superior one, and everybody knows that you're at the top of your game, of course, what could be better if you are an ego-comparative dominant identity and you're winning like mad? What could be wrong with that? The following. Number one, the only thing that matters is winning. You're going to have to stay at the top of your game. You can never, ever, ever win enough. Because if you get to a plateau, and you're even a really smart, winning plateau kind of guy, but you're at a plateau, you're going to lose your meaning and identity in life. How many great successes who have no religion or sense of contribution or values beyond themselves, how many of them wind up being in a state of depression and anxiety? How is it that you invent the television and then film yourself jumping out of a window to your death as your kind of last legacy? How does this happen? Well, as we'll see in a moment, reach a plateau, can't do any more, life has no meaning, people are not giving you the credit you thought you deserved, jump out of a window. I'm not kidding. Really famous, talented, successful people. Number two, the second thing that happens, whatever you do, do not make a mistake once you have identified your identity, your happiness, your purpose in life, and fulfillment with a particular thing. So, for example, when I was a kid, I was a smart physics student, appreciate doing physics, and I thought people respected me for my gifts in this department. And so one day I'm giving a little talk in high school to my class, and I'm pronouncing the word spectroscopy as spectroscopy because I had never heard it pronounced before. I was reading it in a book. So, of course, this kid comes up to me afterwards and he goes, Spitzer, that word spectroscopy, you pronounced it spectroscopy 3 times, and now the entire class thinks you're a consummate idiot. When this is the most important thing that you be thought of the consummate smart guy, and now you're the consummate idiot, this, of course, means you're going to play this tape 100 times before you go to bed and have suicidal feelings. Been there, done that, over the mispronunciation of a word? Absolutely. Don't make a mistake if you're at the top of your game, and don't get publicly exposed. Whoa! I mean, talk about dynamiting your entire existence. That's a great way to do it. Now, I know it's a humorous example, but this can just take people by storm. Thirdly, winners, they're contemptuous people. They really are. They think they're better than everybody else. And they really want to be recognized as better than everybody else by everybody else. And that's what the problem is. So, of course, people, are kind of obsequious to you and very nice to you. And they say, "Oh, Spitzer, you're one of the smartest guys I've ever known," and so forth. And then one day people wake up and go, "Hey, my life is not about being obsequious and kowtowing to Spitzer. He ain't no God. Skip that line. I'm just going to go out and do what I need to do to have a good and significant life. Goodbye to Spitzer." Now, of course, Spitzer does not like this. "Who do you think you are? You have not given me the adulation that I deserve. You have not given me the kudos that I deserve for the day. You must pay." And I'm going to do that. If I can do it by a subtle, incisive insult that can just kind of go right into the heart and twist 2 times, maybe I'll do that. Or if I can undercut you at work, or a little piece of well-placed gossip to really kill you off. The main thing is, of course, the contemptuous man is exceedingly angry because he has not been given his proper due. So our point in question here is a contemptuous man happy? No, said St. Augustine. The contemptuous man is terribly lonely, and not only lonely, but deprived of what makes most difference to him in his life, and therefore he is very unhappy. People can't maintain the degree of adulation. People are not going to treat me like a god when I'm not a god, clearly, and my humanity is manifesting itself 24/7. They're going to tell me one day, grow up. And of course, it's a terrible thing. What's my point? If you win, it's not going to make any difference. You're still going to be fundamentally unhappy because ego comparative advantage in itself won't do the trick. How about just being in the middle? Drawing. Kind of being in the middle and sort of getting your part. Well, as you can probably imagine, you're going to be just caught right in between, right? Inferiority, superiority, and contempt. Back to inferiority again, back to superiority. Fear of loss of esteem and fear of loss of failure. Have you ever sweated bullets at night? You ever wonder why kids can't take an SAT? Well, my kid is a perfectly small, intelligent kid. He always does so well in school and everything else. He goes into a standardized exam, and look at what happens to him. He turns into a stone. He can't perform in the standardized exam because he's paranoid that this crazy exam determines everything he is for the rest of his life. His whole ego comparative event, that's the only thing he sees as making life worth living. And he's seeing this as a definite threat. And he's worried that maybe if the score comes out and they see what a fool I really... But he's not a fool. He's just thinking, people will see this. And that's all that matters. Paranoia. Can't take the test. Sweating bullets at night because they're so scared somebody else will come in and get the advantage. This is all misery, misery, misery. The subtitle to this part of the talk is called 3 Ways of Creating Your Own Hell. And it really is our own hell. Pride is the word that Augustine would use to describe it. I call it ego comparative happiness, which always verges on narcissism. If you have it, you're going to go nuts. If you don't have it, you're going to go nuts. If you're in between, you're going to go nuts. So we got a problem. How do we get our kids out of it? We have to give them a roadmap. We have to give them a plan. Now, how do we get our adults out of it? It's not just the kids. I mean, adults and middle-aged people, they can get stuck in it too. So what can be done? There's only 2 ways out. Level 3 and level 4. And the combination is the best way out. So let's just go for a second. We got to re-alter 3 things, and I'm going to call it 4 fundamental attitudes. But we got to re-alter 3 things in people's lives. I'm not going to talk about freedom tonight. The first thing is we got to alter the way that we feel about our purpose in life And so we've got to stop the ego comparative thing. It's not what school you went to. It's not how you did on the IQ test. It's not how beautiful you have been apprised by your supposed peer group or the in-group. It is not about any of this status stuff. What it's about is using the gifts you have, the talents you have, the beauty you have, the personality you have, the outgoingness you have, the intelligence you have, using it to the best effect for the greatest positive difference for God and others. That is what really matters. Now, if that's what really matters, then let's just think about this and think this through for just a minute. We have to get our kids kind of focused on this. Because if I just tell them, hey, contribution matters, they'll go, yeah, that's right. I'm a contributive person. I want to be a contributive person. That's what I really want to make a difference in my life. I don't want to be a slave to ego comparative happiness. I really don't. And I really want God to make a difference in my life. Get a plan. You have to get goals. You have to help people get goals. And there's 3 stages in doing this. And this little graph up here kind of gives you a sense of how to do it. What we do is we pass out a sheet of paper and we just say, okay, now I just want you to think about this. You don't have to come up with all the answers today. You're 16 years old. You couldn't possibly know all the answers. But you got to start thinking about this. You have to start asking the questions in order to change the perspective. So if you're going to change perspective, number 1 thing, ask questions. How do I make an optimal positive difference to my family? Just start there, the closest associates. How can I make most difference before I die to make their lives better, to make their eternity with God better? Number 2, how can I make an optimal positive difference to my friends? How can I make a difference so that their lives will not only be much more transformed and make a much better difference to the people around them, but also will get them into the kingdom of heaven and help them to get others in the kingdom of heaven? Number 3, how do I make an optimal positive difference to the organizations or institutions with which I'm associated? So if it's my school, fine, that's my school. Or to the community within the school, or to some organizations within the school. Or if it's my business, how do I do that in my business? How do I do that in the organizations with which I'm associated with? Number 4, how do I make an optimal positive difference to the community around me? Okay, if you got an athletic gift, maybe you volunteer for the Babe Ruth tea. If you got an intellectual gift, maybe you go to the parish finance committee, or you have a teaching gift where you can really make a difference to a kid in high school, or somebody who's learning CCD, or somebody who's just struggling with the faith. Use your intellectual gift. Just find ways that are appropriate to you in the community. How do I make an optimal positive difference to the church? How do I make an optimal positive difference to the organization that I call my church, my local church? And how do I make an optimal positive difference to the kids, to people around me? And number 4, how do I make an optimal positive difference to the kingdom of God? So I want to, be very careful to get that plan out there. That's really, really important as well. So once I've got all these things out there, the next thing to do is say, don't worry about getting all the answers, but start thinking about it every single morning. When you get up, think about these questions and jot down anything that kind of occurs to you. If you got those questions, just jot them down. And the next thing is just plan little answers, and eventually consolidations are going to come. You're going to see some things that begin to emerge. And then once you've got some of those things there, put this down at the end of your sheet. For this I came. But still, we're not there yet. Now we've got concrete goals. And that's really good. So I asked the questions. I moved from the questions to the concrete goals. Concrete goals are really good. For this I came. These are the goals I want that'll make my life worth living. I'll have an optimal positive difference in the church, the kingdom of God, my family, my friends, etc. Now the next thing is get a plan. What are the baby steps you're going to take to actualize that plan? And stay on the road to that plan. You don't have to plan the whole plan. Just find the baby steps, or as I always say, that you're going to put on your calendar. If it exists on my calendar, then it exists in reality. If it's not on my calendar, it will never exist in reality. I have to be committing that time. And for me, the commitment of time occurs at the calendar. We got to teach our kids to be proactive, goal makers, planners, baby step providers and get it on the calendar and act. If we do that, I'm telling you, our kids will move into sanity in one heck of a hurry. They're going to abandon the false philosophy of this world, ego-comparative identity and materialistic pleasure as seemingly the highest happiness in life. The second thing that's really important beyond getting these goals, the second thing is, how do I look at other people? Everything, if you're going to have empathy, then you're going to have to look for the good news in the other. So looking for the good news in the other is really going to be an important discipline, because that will lead to empathy, and empathy leads to love. I mean, love in the sense of contributive love. I want to make an optimal positive difference to you, even if it costs me, even if you never thank me, even if I can actually make a difference to your life and you don't even know that I've made a difference to your life. I do want to make that difference, because that's what my life is all about. Now, in order to do that, you've got to see the good news in people. No good news, no empathy, no love. So, looking for the good news in the other, here's the problem from Gabriel Marcel. You cannot look for the good news in others and the bad news in others simultaneously. You will always seek the one that you are dominantly looking for. Here's the second problem. The bad news is our default drive. What's irritating, weak, stupid, and unkind rivets us to itself. Literally. So you see Joe coming down the corridor, right? And you go, there's Joe, stupid. Then he did all this kind of stuff. He's really irritating. He's really unkind. Can't stand the guy. But I'm a good Christian, so I'm going to love him anyway. Because what does not kill me makes me stronger. Good Nietzschean adage. So I can kill myself loving Joe. But there's no love in it. No compassion. No real desire to do the good. Just a stoic indifference to try and overcome my disdain, disgust, and hatred for the poor sot. Now, that's not going to do it. So we have to train people in that initial discipline. How do we identify the little good things that people try to do, the great good things that they aspire to do, the gratuitous acts of kindness in them? And by the way, the fact that they have a transphysical, transcendent soul that desires perfect truth, perfect love, perfect goodness, perfect beauty, and perfect being. That person in front of me, this mystery in front of me, is a deep-sea fish. They will settle for nothing less than the infinity of God. That's the only thing that will satisfy them, because they're made in the very image of God. We ought to behold that mystery. That is something of significance indeed. Now, having said all of that, the main thing to remember is, if we can get that discipline, then imagine what it would be like if somebody is marrying somebody. So the 16-year-old now is going into a marriage. And the marriage is predicated on the fact that they're pledging to one another, I'm going to look for the good news in you before I ever see the bad news. I may see the bad news. I may see what's irritating, weak, stupid, and unkind. But first and foremost, I'm looking for the good news in you, the soul in you, the unique goodness and lovability in you, the delightful idiosyncrasies in you, even though they may be irritating. I'm looking for the good news in you. It'll transform everything in their marriage. I mean, it'll transform them, because there's always going to be a modicum of empathy and at least a basis, on the basis of the good news, for communication to start working on where the bad news is in both of our lives. Just looking for the good news in the other is a real discipline which is in short supply today. People are so impatient and so judgmental and just so kick you when you're down. I mean, and by the way, young people are really good experts, a lot of them, in how to do this. And for all intents and purposes, we just got to say, this is a course of insanity. If you keep doing this, you will find yourself not only lonely, you'll find yourself the most uncontributive person in the world. Get ready, because you're going to be at home with your ego all by yourself. Last but not least, the third thing which is absolutely required and which kids have to know is, You have to get to God. There's a ton of good evidence for God, for Jesus, the soul, even Jesus' resurrection. From science. Young people adore science. And I have to tell you, I put this together, and I'm begging you, just go to crediblecatholic.com and go on to free resources. And if your kid has a problem with science, physics, God, who created God, if God had to create the universe, if you've heard all these questions, Jesus never existed, he was the product of a bunch of Christians who were thinking about Egyptian myths and brought this to fruition, and so forth and so on. They come home with the most ridiculous theories that are absolutely historically unsubstantiated, thinking they're truth. I'm begging you, go to crediblecatholic.com. Click on free resources. Go to the button that says 7 Essential Modules. Pick the videos. Start with Module 1 on near-death experiences and the proof of the soul, and watch it with your child. It will jaw-drop them. I promise you. And then go to the Shroud of Turin, the material in Module 4. If you want to see the evidence for the resurrection on the Shroud of Turin, just go to Module number 4 and watch it with your kid. As one scientific expert after the next just says very blithely, yes, in order to produce an image of this quality, you would need vacuum ultraviolet radiation in a directional ultraviolet vacuum, and the magnitude somewhere in the order of 6 to 8 billion with a B, billion watts. That would be the equivalent of 500,000 searchlights coming out of that dead body, which I must say is highly unusual for dead bodies to be doing. And so, of course, when the kids see it, their jaw drop, and they go, "No way!" And we respond, "Way! What? Definitely! This is what these science guys are talking about." And so if you present the evidence to them, I'm telling you, they want to believe. Their sanity depends on their belief. But if somebody's propagandizing, saying, "You're just a naive, crutch-needing little bumpkin, and you can't face the truth of science, and science has disproved God," they'll go, "Whoa, I don't want to be inauthentic. I don't want to be a naive bumpkin. Gee, I should be a non-naive bumpkin." The point is pretty clear. They're going to shy away until you can give them enough armament and enough of these videos. I'm telling you, you watch those first 4 videos with your kid, you'll see a transformed kid. You'll see that kid liberated unto belief. And I'm begging you to just do it. But here's the other thing you got to do. You got to tell them how important it is to go to Mass. Mass is really important, not just because it collectivizes the commitment, it brings us together as a community, but it makes us accountable to a truth beyond ourselves. The idea that you can sit at bed at home on Sunday morning and say, "I'm just praying. I'm praying to God." No, you're not. You don't even know who God is. You have no accountability to get some right information versus wrong information about God. You really think you're praying to God in a vacuum? You really think you can master the infinite one, the master of the universe, by mere reflection from your bed in your room, when, of course, sleep might produce a more inviting option? The point I'm trying to get to is, I think we need to really say to our kids, this is going to be the most beneficial thing that you've ever had. And right now, you might just think, "Oh, the real presence of Christ in the Eucharist. Where am I going to find out about that?" crediblecatholic.com. And wait till you see just pull out the stuff in crediblecatholic.com on those Eucharistic miracles. So just go to section 5 on the church, the Catholic Church, that's in the modules, and go to that last part. Those Eucharistic miracles are mind-blowing miracles. These kids go, "No way. The host didn't turn into a piece of flesh from the upper wall of the ventricle of a person whose heart was beating with a proliferation of white blood cells at the time," which is the only way you can get a proliferation of white blood cells existing in a piece of dead tissue. It had to be extracted from the body when the heart was still beating. And by the way, the reason that those white blood cells are embedded in the ventricle wall in the first place is because a person had to experience a polytrauma. I said, "Do you really think that the church is going to perpetrate a fraud? First of all, by taking a person and then beating him to the point of death, then while his heart is still beating, opening him up right there and cutting him open and taking out a chunk of his upper left ventricle and killing him thereby, and then trying to transmutate it from a host. The transmutation from the substance of the host to the substance of that tissue is so refined that literally it is less than 1 molecule in its diameter. Even NASA technology cannot replicate anything like this. Then kids go, maybe the Catholic Church wouldn't want to kill somebody to do this. Maybe it's not a fraud. Maybe Jesus is really present in the Holy... You got to start somewhere. They love science. Go to crediblecatholic.com. But anyway, my point is, here's some spontaneous prayers. And maybe the people who invited you to this, they can share these PowerPoints with you. If they share it, they can send it to you by email or however, or put it on a website or something. But if you go to those spontaneous prayers, give them to your kids. They're just a little battery of spontaneous prayers that can really help them get off the ground when they really need God, when they really need grace, when they need a conduit of grace. You know, I give up. You take care of it, Lord. Lord, make good come out of whatever evil I have done. Lord, make good come out of this cross, some optimal resurrection for me, for others, for the church through the cross I'm enduring right now. Lord, push back the foreboding. Just push back the darkness. You say that about 6 or 7 times with faith. I'm telling you. The darkness, the depression, the foreboding goes away. God takes care of it. I keep promising these kids, and they come back and they tell me, you're absolutely right, Father Spitzer. The foreboding really does go away. That's just a real simple prayer. Lord, push back the foreboding. If you can get them to look at those modules, get them the evidence that they need, and then secondly, just tell them the benefits of going to church. It will be utterly transformative. It will keep you on the road. It will be the truth of who God is. It will be your source of accountability. It will be your source of community when you are in need. This church that you take so lightly, that you think is just a hassle on Sunday mornings, this church is such a font of grace that it is literally Jesus welling up in the sacrament of reconciliation, which will literally break the grip of the devil almost instantly. And then, of course, this Eucharist, which is He Himself given to us, transforming us in our inner depths. I leave you with this one final story. There I was in college. You know, I was thinking to myself, what a jolly good fellow I was. I was pretty much a deeply hedonistic, materialistic, power-hungry lad. And then one day, I was still going to church, though. Still going to church. And this guy, Bert Martinez, comes up to me and goes, Spitzer, what are you doing for Lent? I said, I don't know, I give up meat or something. He goes, well, I'm not. I'm going to go to Mass every day. I tell you, the Holy Spirit was working in my head and heart. I said, Martinez can go to Mass every day. I can go to Mass every day during Lent. But when Lent's over, I'm giving it up. So, of course, I started going to Mass every day. Got hooked. And I'm telling you, the kids who start going to daily Mass, they go there with openness, they're going to get hooked. They'll get hooked first by the homily, then they're going to get hooked by the community, and then they're going to get hooked by the Eucharist itself. They won't know it at first, but it is the Eucharist. There is that sense of peace. There is that sense of deep and abiding purpose in life that is welling up through Jesus Christ, who's transforming us. And you know, I started going to Mass for about 1.5 years, and people would say, Spitzer, you're changing. I'd say, no, I'm still the utilitarian, selfish animal I always was. And they go, no, you're actually less of a materialistic, selfish animal. But you are changing for the better. And, of course, the point I'm trying to get to is, it finally dawned on me as I was thinking about my vocation. I've been transformed from a utilitarian to a guy whose most important thing in life is his religion. Did I do it to myself? Hardly. It was the heart of Christ dwelling in me through the Holy Eucharist. Thanks so very, very much.
You have been listening to an exclusive live broadcast from the campus of St. Michael the Archangel Catholic Church. An Evening with Father Robert Spitzer, S.J. Catholic 540 AM Divine Mercy Radio would like to thank St. Michael's pastor, Father Michael Burbeck, and the staff at St. Michael the Archangel Catholic Church in Cary for their support in bringing you this live broadcast. We now return you to our regularly scheduled broadcast, already in progress, on Catholic 540 AM Divine Mercy Radio and the Divine Mercy Radio app.